Hi, and welcome everyone to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. Today we are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in beautiful New Orleans. Hello, everyone. It's so good to have you here today. Hi, Heidi. Always such a pleasure to see you, my dear friend and my star sister. Yes. So today we're supposed to have Mike Wilkerson back on, and he did confirm that he would be here. And I was so super excited to talk to him because the topic is something I'm very much interested in. I know a lot of folks are. He's got so many followers as well, and he's always appearing all over the place in conferences. And we were going to discuss, or are, hopefully he'll pop in, colossal fossils, petrified giants, lost history, and the great historical cover-up. He has not popped in as of yet. And as I said, he did confirm. So I'm just going to keep my fingers crossed and wait. You know how life is. And yes, happy Halloween, dear friend. I hope you have something fun planned for today. Today's my son's birthday, so that was a treat. I didn't expect that when I had him, but it was a pure joy anyway. He was supposed to come October 1st, and interestingly enough, I went in a like a mystic bookstore one day, and a psychic walked over to me when I was about 7 months pregnant, and she said, "Oh, you're going to have a boy, and he's going to be born on Halloween." And I'm like, no way. I said his due date's October 1st. And she's like, no. You're going to have him on Halloween and he's going to turn out to be someone very special. And she was exactly correct. So that kind of blew my mind. But I was always interested in that type of thing. And I kind of believed her. And it turned out to be true. So those psychics are onto something, that's for sure. But if Mike is unable to join us today, I'm going to reach out to Michelle, the manager of this network. She's always a joy. I just had her on last night. We had a fabulous conversation. I feel bad doing that to her, but obviously we always have something new and exciting to talk about. And I'm just going to be checking my email to see if he emailed me. And not as of yet. I'm sure that he had a good reason for not being able to be here today, but these things happen when you have a live show. These things happen even when people confirm. So if you're watching, and I hope you are, just to reiterate, welcome to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. And as you heard, we're broadcasting live on United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, which is 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. So if you can, pop into the chat. I'd love to get your questions and comments. In the meanwhile, I guess I could show you some of my Instagram reels that I save, and that I save for a pretty good reason. And I always mean to talk about them. There's one here about AI Atlas, Atlas AI. Yeah. And let me set the stage. I can't multitask. Hold on. So I thought this was pretty interesting because it's an update as to what is supposed to be going on. So I'm going to add that to the stage and just give that a play. And unmute
and
it.
quite dramatically, actually. Here's the latest. So as it hit perihelion as predicted on October 29th, which was yesterday, new data from NASA's STEREO, SOHO, and GHOST 19 shows that the object rapidly brightened and it shifted to a color bluer than the sun itself. That's coming from several sources, one of which is Avi Loeb, who confirmed the change using the fresh imagery that was taken between October 18th and the 24th. So basically, a blue color means that it's releasing higher energy particles, likely fresh gas, dust, as it heats up, nearing that sun. And that could tell us a lot about what the object is actually made of. So it's currently behind the sun where it was predicted to be. It still seems to be on the course as predicted, and it shows no signs of fragmentation yet, but it's evolving quickly. So over the next few days, researchers will be watching to see if the brightness holds or if it collapses, which would give a clue to whether it's going to survive its swing around the sun or not. So I'll keep you posted as new data rolls in, but stay curious, stay grounded.
Yeah, I mean, oh, Carrie. Hello, dear friend. Yes, Mike's research it's so intense. I was absolutely blown away myself by it, and I had so many other questions, and he was going to show us a whole different presentation about these colossal fossils. And yeah, I hope he's okay too. It's not like him to just not show, especially after he confirmed. So I'm hoping he's okay. I do have my email handy in case I hear anything from him. But sorry, I'm just checking. Yeah. So as far as Three Eye Atlas goes, there's a lot of speculation out there. We don't know exactly what the deal. Let me just remove this. Okay, sorry. Sorry. We don't know exactly what the deal is with Three Eye Atlas. Um, Interestingly enough, there's a lot of people that have never heard about it. And I have to have conversations with people and kind of explain to them my novice understanding of what it is, just based on my research and understanding. If you don't know, if you're listening and you don't know what it is, it's supposed to be this asteroid, comet, some type of celestial object that has been navigating space. And from what I heard, it's taken a path that's very unnatural for something that's supposed to be just a heavenly body. And it's kind of like doing a tour of the planets in some type of elliptical fashion. And it's emitting, from what I heard again, some type of methane gas from the entity itself. And that is indicative of some type of object. Again, there's so much speculation about it. Nobody knows exactly what it is. Avi Loeb has been saying for quite some time that it could be an ET. I've even seen folks talk about how they did some remote viewing. Here he is. Goodness gracious. Oh my God.
Hi, Carol Ann. Sorry about that. Time zones mixed up. I was waiting for another.
We were worried about you.
I'm never late. It's the first in a long time, so apologies.
I just let Michelle know because she's the manager. And no worries. It's happened before. That's why, like, I always get started and I hoped that nothing was wrong and that you were okay. And then I thought it just might be a time zone issue. But thank you so much for being here. Yeah. And it's funny because I've gotten some comments that people, and even Carrie just left one there. She said she was blown away by your research. And I've even gotten a few emails from people asking me, like, for you to come back on. And I'm like, yeah, you're supposed to come Friday. So let me get your ticker up and running because, and I want to mention, where is it? I want to mention for folks that are listening via FM or on different platforms, please follow Mike's work on, especially on YouTube. You can get him at Stellium, Stellium 7. So all you have to do is go to YouTube. And I mean, this man has put years and years of work into this research. And it's not just willy-nilly research. This is scientific research. And I think the simplest thing we could do to pay him back is to show him some gratitude and give him a follow. So Is that your preferred
Okay.
platform, Mike? YouTube?
Yeah, I'm kind of all over the place, but that's the only one I'm consistently active on.
Okay,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
the
he's
YouTube
got,
channel.
yeah, I mean, I have all your socials in the description of this video on my YouTube channel, which is Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. But again, because we're on so many different platforms and on the network, and on SoundCloud, it's hard for people to tick a box when they're listening. So if you guys could take 2 seconds and just follow Mike and show him some love. And again, I have it running across the screen as well. So you can see it right after the topic, but he's easy to find. You just have to go to YouTube and type in STELLIUM7, right? And that's it. So
With
let's
no
show Mike.
space.
Yeah, what was that?
Without a space between
Without a
the
space. Yeah,
number. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, Carrie, let me see what she just said. I was already learning that giants could be mountains, as I found I was a giant in another life, died here in Alberta. So his presentation confirmed had me in. Oh my goodness.
Hmm.
Could
Yeah,
be,
I
could
think
be.
there's definitely a fractal nature to reality, and I think in the past things were a lot bigger.
Yeah,
I think we're being downsized, and a lot of people might think of that as a negative thing. And I thought of a snowflake the other day, where if you look at a snowflake under a microscope, you see all that detail and the beauty of the geometry.
yeah,
And the initial parts that are shooting outward are larger, and then it bifurcates, it gets branches off into smaller, and it's really that last bit before the snowflake stops growing that it really gets all of its complexity. So it's not necessarily a
mm.
bad thing that we're downsizing. It might just be that now the realm is allowing for a much greater degree of variety and beauty.
How do you feel about the whole Nephilim thing? We hear so much about that they, found human women attractive and started procreating with them, and hence giants were born. And how do you feel about that myth?
Well, I think it's definitely interesting. The Bible. I grew up in a very alternative way with parents who were hippies, followers of Eastern gurus and into Eastern mysticism, and then all that sort of thing. And for me, the Bible and Christianity and just the world's major religions, they seemed like tools of oppression and divide and conquer strategies, basically. And I thought of the Bible as, especially having grown up with the Eastern mysticism that's so rooted in the expansion of consciousness and connecting to the divine within. It felt like the Bible was like spirituality light for people who needed a sky daddy. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I kind of dismissed it because I saw, even as a teen and in my 20s, the Crusades and all the horrors that have been
Yeah.
perpetrated because of these different religious books that we have around the world. So I I never really gave it much credence, and I definitely didn't believe the narratives of, oh, the Earth is 6,000 years old. And I was a big space junkie, through my youth and even into adulthood, and we talked about that last time, of just like going down the rabbit holes that have to do
Yeah.
with space fakery, and from the beginning to the moon landings themselves, right up to the present day. And that was something I had heard about. The moon landings might have been faked, and that the things might not have happened the way that we were taught when it comes to the moon. But
Yeah.
it had never occurred to me that maybe everything since had also been faked.
Mhm.
And they're
Yeah.
always talking about going back to the moon. And my question is, how can you go back to somewhere you've never been? And I don't even know if it's a physical object that you can set foot on.
I agree.
Um, so back to your question about the Nephilim, it was really this research and the different things that I discovered and the information that came my way as a result of subscribers chiming in with comments on the YouTube channel, and different things just, you know, being handed to me that were straight from the Bible or from the apocryphal texts like the Book of Jasher, the Book of Enoch. You know, these are where these stories are really told in more detail than they are in the Bible, of the fallen angels coming down, mating with the daughters of men, giving rise to the Titans, and a corrupted realm where everything, you know, is being manipulated, and there's gene manipulations, and kind of like everything we're seeing now today. It's almost like it's all happening again, right? But that was, according to the Bible, the whole reason for Noah's flood was to purge the realm of the
Yes,
corrupted
exactly.
beings. And the story is that I think I can't remember if it's in Jasher or the Book of Enoch, is that the angels went to work at the great trees, meaning
I
cut
heard
them
that too.
down. So they were um, they were ordered by God to bring the trees down. Well, why would God bring down these magnificent creations that he had created? Well, because he didn't want the corrupted beings to have somewhere to flee, because they could have
Right.
climbed the trees.
Yeah, that blew
So
me away when I heard that. It made sense.
yeah,
Kind of made
yeah,
sense.
yeah. And so, and then also it's interesting because there's a lot of sandstone dwellings and cliff dwellings around the world where we're told that they carved in with these primitive Bronze Age tools into stone in order to create these rooms that they lived in and survived, you know, the different things that happened with the weather and catastrophes or what have you. And my suspicions now, after having looked at a lot of these sites in detail, is that once the trees were felled, they sat for quite a while before the flood came. And so it would be a lot easier to carve into those trees with primitive tools if it was wood rather than stone. And so I
Yeah.
think that's what happened. I think that those cliff dwellings are from before the flood, and the sandstone dwellings as well. And you can see all of the grain in them. I showed photos last time of the salt mines and some of these different dwellings in places like Petra, where once you have the eyes to see it, it's very obvious that you're looking at tree grain. There's no way that the mainstream geological narratives can account for the kinds of patterns that are being seen, and the swirling and the knots that
Yeah.
are clearly visible.
You know what I
Yeah.
wanted to ask
So,
you real quick, if you don't mind? I live right near the Delaware Water Gap in Pennsylvania, and I was shown this Indian face a long time ago. And I always thought, like, wow, that is so amazing. But if you look like at some of the better pictures like this one, you can clearly see it's supposed to be. Do you think that that's just a natural formation, or could that actually be
I do. I
something?
think what you're looking at there is tree grain, actually. But I see the face as well. I
Yeah.
mean, I've done abstract art myself for years, and a lot of my artwork, you know, things appear in it that you can see faces or structures or whatever. That's called pareidolia. And
Yes.
so whenever someone, I can show some images later of examples of more of these structures that people are saying are titans. And initially, when I saw them, I thought, "Oh, wow, that's pretty compelling," and, you know, in
Yeah.
alignment with a lot of the other things that I had been coming across. Um,
Is that
but that
pareidolia then?
I would say 100% that what we're
Yeah.
looking at there is pareidolia. And the reason is you can see that it's made of these lines,
Yeah,
and
I
that
see
those
that.
lines are extending. So, you know, why would a face petrify in layers,
Right,
right?
right, that's
And
true.
a lot of times when people are seeing these faces, they're not accounting for the fact that maybe certain features like the eyes or the nose or something are being formed by shadow. So you can have
Ah,
foliage that's playing a role, shadow is playing a role, snow. So there are lots of videos or photographs out there of people, looking at these kinds of structures, and then
yeah,
they just jump to the conclusion that because it looks like something, it must be
it
that.
is. Right,
and
right.
and that's literally pareidolia.
Yeah.
And if you were to just look at things from a different angle, like nowadays we have Google Earth is 3D, and in most places you have good enough detail that you can zoom in and tilt.
Pan
And
and tilt, yeah.
this is what I did with the mountain initially, and that was what caused my brain to burst open, right? Was I wasn't just seeing something that from a distance had the form of an elephant and seemed to have an eye socket right in the exact place it
Yeah,
should be. But after an hour of looking on Google Earth and just really examining the structure, I had a list of almost 10 features. That's already a long
yeah.
list, right? That's getting
Mhm.
beyond pareidolia into,
Yes, absolutely.
if it's just a trick of the eyes, then wow, it's pretty weird that there's
Yeah.
so many things that are matching that, right? So that was actually what caused my deeper investigation into the mountain. And then there's another term that's similar to pareidolia. It's called apophenia.
I've
And
heard of that.
apophenia is the recognition of a pattern that doesn't
Mhm.
exist. So critics of my work with the heartstones, which we talked about last time as well, they would say that that's what that is. I'm cherry picking. I've got this crazy idea that some of the stones that we see in different places are petrified organs, and so I'm looking for the ones that meet my narrative, and so they would call that cherry picking. They would call my lack of knowledge about geology the Dunning-Kruger effect, that I know a little bit about something, so I think I know a
Right.
lot. So they would dismiss it with that. And then apophenia, which is that I've recognized a pattern that doesn't actually exist, but I'm
Yeah.
really good at spotting rocks that fit that pattern. And
Mm.
what I would say to them is, okay, well, if I give you a description of a particular shape of a kind of stone that I want you to find, and then I start to give you a number of very, very specific features that I want that stone to exhibit, the longer that list, the closer towards impossibility it should be for you to find that
That's
stone,
correct.
at least in a short amount of time. And the ones that I've presented are showing a large number of
Mhm.
attributes that are
Yeah.
highly specific in some cases, and I can find them in short order. They're scalable, it's very
Mhm.
repeatable, and as I mentioned last time, it's also predictable. I found some that are partially buried and predicted what the remainder of the stone was going to look like, and was accurate. Um, so scalable, predictable, repeatable as well. Just being able to do this over and over and over again. So um, yeah, I've addressed all those criticisms. I sent some stones to a laboratory in the US and really got the runaround. And I thought I
Oh,
was going
did
to
you?
get a bunch of data from them. And what I got was basically just them supporting mainstream narratives, mentioning the Dunning-Kruger effect, apophenia, doctrine of signatures, all of these things. Zero data, got no numbers back, no analysis of the stones, just opinions from experts, and they hadn't reviewed my work. They didn't understand how how much I had already done and how much I had
Mm.
shown that this pattern cannot be explained by the mainstream geological narrative. Or let me rephrase that: they'll come up with an explanation. you
Oh,
know,
they will?
they will definitely, because it's kind of a narrative breaker when it comes to certain aspects of the mainstream geological narrative. So um, yeah, so that was an interesting experience, and in the end, I came to the conclusion that I was encountering gatekeepers, not just people that were closed-minded to the
Yeah.
ideas, but people that were intentionally trying to obfuscate what I was presenting and hand-wave dismiss it. And so, luckily, they recorded the initial conversation that I had with one of the two gentlemen, and then they recorded their conversation as they were discussing the results of their non-analysis. You wouldn't believe what they sent me. I'll tell you in a second. But so
Mm.
I had 90 minutes of audio recordings where they were talking about a lot of technical details and specificities. But with my background in chiropractic, you study a lot of Latin because all the medical
Sure.
terminology is in Latin as it is in these other ologies. So it wasn't confounding me, the things that they were saying, but for the average person, that's very difficult. They don't know the terminology. They don't know what they're dealing with. So I spent a lot of time going through every single line of those audio recordings and presenting visuals and definitions and showing people, this is what they're claiming right now. This is what they're saying. Do these rocks match what they're saying?
Mhm.
And it's a 3-hour video, but it's very interesting to watch because of those audio files and because of all of they're basically addressing all of the things that I anticipated would come from mainstream geology as these ideas started to take hold and spread. And this is one of the reasons initially I didn't. I've done a scientific paper for my master's thesis for chiropractic. I know how it's done. I also know how much work goes into it, but I wasn't operating under the illusion that if I put together a really good study, that this would be accepted by mainstream geological journals, because
Mm.
it can't be. It's too disruptive, I think. So
Yeah.
that's when I decided to start a YouTube channel and just give all the information away for free. And that's what I've been doing for 7 years. And it started with the mountain, it led to the Heartstones, and then along the
Mhm.
way, I came across all of the information that was produced by Mike Alley, who's Hangman 1128, his YouTube channel. And he was presenting HD footage of the most amazing sites, showing undeniable, in my opinion, self-evident proof that those trees were real. They were on a scale that is hard
Yeah.
to fathom. And it's undeniable when you have the eyes to see it. Most people don't, because we've been blinded by the paradigm blindness. And some of the people who are the worst at suffering from paradigm blindness are the academics, because they've been blinded growing up in a paradigm. Then they've been educated to become specialists, but all of those foundational principles that they've learned about the nature of stone, how it forms,
Yeah.
why things happen, are all based on things that I think are intentionally there to mislead us and obfuscate the truth.
I know, and think about how they must feel when they're presented with something that's in absolute opposition to what they went decades to school for and training, and then to be told, that it's possibly not based in reality. I mean, that must talk about cognitive dissonance, right? That must
Yeah.
flip them out completely. That's like your life's work being shot down by some guy, by some dude, So it's like,
Some chiropractor in Spain is like,
exactly. Yeah.
unraveling geology. It's not even on the table as a possibility. So
Yeah.
a lot of people don't get, I mean, real cognitive dissonance means they're going to get aggressive. They're going to go on the attack and start insulting, or but I think for a lot of people, it just doesn't even register, and they just dismiss it, because how could tens of thousands of geologists be wrong for so long
Yeah.
about something so fundamental and so easy to see with the naked eye? And that's really why I coined the term biogeology. Well, I didn't coin it, I appropriated it. It was a little used branch of science that most people have never heard of. And I was like, this is the perfect term, because it's denoting a far more direct connection between biology and geology than what we're
Absolutely. Yeah.
taught. Yeah,
Yeah. I love
because
that.
even in the mainstream geological narrative, they're telling us that geology is biology. They're just giving us hundreds of millions of years timelines and saying that dead plant and animal life has compressed over that period of time. And then there's the tectonic plates that bang together, create the
Hmm.
mountains. And that's why we see all this layering. There's never any consideration that maybe it doesn't just look like a tree. Maybe it was part of a gigantic tree. and that's why you can see the swirling layers. And it's like, okay, well, the layers, even though the stone is brittle, the stone is swirling. How is that happening without it breaking? Oh, well, it was really hot, and that it's on its way to metamorphic rock. And so there's always going to be
Yeah.
explanations.
What about fossilized evidence? I mean, we have so many fossils, right? That you have plants and animals. Has anything been discovered, unearthed? Giant footprints. I mean, I've seen doors that are built into architecture that are huge and clearly
Mm.
not for humans. But do we have any fossilized evidence of the existence of giants or titans?
Huh.
Like clear
Well,
fossilized evidence.
yeah, I mean, giants is a big topic. You know, a lot of the evidence has apparently been squirreled away by the Smithsonian,
I
and
heard that too. They
you know,
hide it away.
UNESCO controls all of these very special sites, and then oftentimes they come in to refurbish them to try and
Yeah.
bring it back to the way it was before. You have the Army Corps of Engineers, which have a reputation for going and destroying places as well. So I think there's a lot of intentional hiding of the past. And well, I know that that's the case. When it comes to giants and giant skeletons, there's loads of old newspaper articles. If you go back to before the Rockefellers took over medicine and publishing and education, which happened in the beginning of the 20th century. If you go back to the articles before that, I think I might have mentioned my friend Ben's channel, The Archivist. He spent over a decade collating tens of thousands of articles from these old newspapers because they digitized them all, right? So you can go read these papers from 100 years ago. Nobody ever reads the old papers because it's yesterday's news, right? It's like, how interesting is
Literally.
a week
Yeah.
old newspaper? You want the latest one, right?
Right.
Well, when you go back and you read these papers, it's very interesting because one, the quality of language was far higher 50, 100 years ago. You know, the average person's capacity with language was way beyond the
Yeah,
average
it's bad.
today, you know. And we've been intentionally dumbed down by the Rockefeller system to make us a bunch
Oh,
of
yeah.
useless eaters that work, and soon we won't even be needed for the factories, right? So these articles, not only are they incredibly well written, they're written in a very matter-of-fact way. They're not necessarily flamboyant. It doesn't have the ring of somebody's creating some fantastic tale. It feels like you're reading something that's true.
Yeah.
And he's done a series called Anomalous America. Again, The Archivist is the channel name, also known as Waking Up with Analog. And he's gone state by state through the US, starting with Alaska, working his way down the east or the west coast, and then going across. And he's gotten about halfway through the country. And
Yeah.
basically what he's done is he's presented all of this information that he's gathered state by state. And there are themes that are reoccurring over and over again in these articles. And it's buried civilization, multiple
Mhm.
layers. And as we know with the megalithic architecture,
Yeah.
the further we go down, the more impressive it gets. It should be the opposite, right? The oldest stuff should be the most primitive, and it's the other way around. When you're looking at the Greco-Roman architecture, a lot of people like to call it Tartarian architecture
Yeah.
now, for
Yeah.
lack of a better term. But there appears to have been a realm-wide civilization that was producing buildings that were far more magnificent than anything that we're producing today, right? We've got glass and steel frame and rectangles, and look at all of the most revered buildings in the world. They're all exhibiting sacred geometry, incredible architecture, built to last. They're still standing when a lot of the stuff that's built in the last 100 years has already fallen down. And probably were technological devices as well that may have been harvesting energy from the ether.
Absolutely.
They may have been multifunctional. They're probably powering some kind of an energetic grid. So, free energy, for lack of a better term. And, on a giant scale, you were talking about the doors a moment ago. And so, the traces of that are in every country on Earth, at least where it hasn't been destroyed. Pyramids are everywhere. This kind of architecture is everywhere. Evidence of widespread flooding, and buried buildings that are buried like multiple floors below the ground with facades and windows, and that shouldn't be there. There's no way you're going to dig down to create a foundation and then we'll put doors and windows here as well, like something that's never going to be seen because Earth is butting up against it. So clearly that stuff happened. And that is all reflected beautifully in these newspaper articles, as is gigantism, as is cryptids, all kinds of weird beings, loads of different anomalous examples of petrification, giant petrified stuff. And then you've got the fire narratives and the flooding narratives. Hey, Derp, good to see you. Derp's
I remember
one of my
him.
mods. Yeah.
It's interesting too, because like here, Mike, thank you for your comments. He made one earlier too. Maybe we should pop to that one, because he said, when we were talking about the Nephilim and stuff, it's what the scriptures reveal, that the heavenly sons of God came down into God's creation to turn us against one another. Even though we still justify killing one another, we completely miss it. Now, I understand that perspective. The only thing mainstream about them is it is the blind leading the blind, and they still can't see. Mike got it right. Our eyes don't lie. A whole world killed God. Well, I don't know if they killed him. I think they tried to bury and destroy as much as they can. The thing that bothers me about the biblical stuff is that so much of the Bible was left out intentionally. So we're not getting the whole picture of what we need, piecing together there. So we kind of
Many
have
books.
to, exactly, many. I think there's like 77 books were left out, some number. Like it's a big number.
Yeah, I don't remember how many of the apocryphal texts there were, but
yeah,
it's a big
I
number.
think I read it's a pretty large number. So we can't really get the correct perspective on things. But now Tartaria, I'm so
Oh,
bad
wait,
at.
just let me add something
Go ahead,
before,
finish.
because this is something I thought about before.
Yeah.
It's important, it's not just the Bible or the Quran or these other, the
Right.
Judeo-Christian texts. It's also all the ancient mythologies. It's the tribal religions. They're like, you've got the Hopi Indians with their different tales of cataclysm and what they call the different colored kachinas, the blue star kachina, and these sorts of things. We have the Greek myths of Medusa and instant petrification,
Sure.
which may be an anthropomorphization for a plasma event, because her hair, the snakes, moves like the tendrils of plasma. And so there's a lot to suggest that plasma is capable of instant petrification, and that's what she was known for. She just looked at something and it turned to stone, right? So you've got the Greek myths and the Norse myths, and so this is, I think, really what they've done is they've packaged the real history and called it myth and fairy tale and legend, and then they've given us a false narrative, which is the true history, and that ties in deeply with heliocentrism, the Big Bang. A lot of the narratives that we're getting from mainstream science about the nature of the universe and how old it is and where it came from. And a lot of that divorces God from the equation, right?
Yes.
So you have, like, I grew up believing in God, but not like some, God on high in a throne, but more of a amorphous energy that I thought of as the Force from Star Wars, that was this underlying ground of all being that everything emerged from. And then they give us narratives about dark matter, which is, I can't remember, 90 something percent of the known universe is not even observable. So basically they're telling us that what we think of as matter is just kind of the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the nature of the universe. So, but all of that is very godless. There's no intentional creator God that's in that equation. And I'm not suggesting a white bearded guy on a throne, but
Right.
I
Of
believe
course.
that we live in a created realm. The majesty of the creator's vision is embedded into everything when you have the eyes to
Yes.
see it. But we're told
It's in
these
our
stories
DNA.
about, yeah, well, I question DNA as well nowadays, but
Oh, jeez.
yeah, I can recommend the works of Tom Cowan and Andy Kaufman. These are both doctors who have gone a long way to dispelling a lot of the mainstream myths when it comes to
Oh,
things
I'll have to check that out.
medical related. But yeah, it doesn't mean there isn't some sort of inheritance. Obviously, we inherit traits from our predecessors, but it may not be happening the way we've been taught.
Wow. So
um,
so not to change topics, but are they saying that there's no DNA, that it's like another false line of crap we've been fed, or is it just not the way
yeah,
we
I
think
mean,
it is?
when you get into things like viruses, you look into what is the
Yeah, we talked
evidence
about that.
for isolation of viruses. You find out there are no actual studies with proper scientific methodology that have isolated the very pathogen that they were supposedly protecting everybody from.
Yeah.
And a lot can be said about a whole lot of other narratives when it comes to cells and their function and organelles and all these other
Yeah.
things. So I would refer to their work for that, because
Okay.
they've been dispelling loads of pseudoscientific myths that are propagated as fact.
Yeah, and I love challenging the narrative that we've been fed, whatever it is. And then as soon as you do that, they label you a conspiracy theorist. And, anytime somebody, like if I bring up a topic to somebody in the real world, and that they don't agree, I immediately get called a conspiracy theorist. And I welcome it.
Mm.
Like I love asking the questions. And why not? Like, why shouldn't we be doing that?
They stop being theories when facts are presented and evidence comes to
Right.
light. Then they start being possibilities or
Right.
plausibilities or probabilities or just facts, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I mean, the very term was coined by the CIA for the express purpose of doing
Right.
exactly what people are unconsciously doing, which is dismissing information that counters their belief structures
Mhm.
because it's too disruptive, right?
Yeah.
So that's where the cognitive dissonance kicks in, and then they talk about it being a theory. But the question is, how many of those conspiracy theories have turned out to be true with mountains of evidence in the last century?
Absolutely.
Like most of them, right? And
Absolutely.
so to me, when they throw that term out now, they're just like, it's like you know it's written on their forehead that they're just not
It
a
is.
very deep thinker.
Exactly.
They don't understand how to see broader patterns. They're not questioning authority. They're blind faith believers in scientism,
Right.
which is the new religion, along with heliocentrism, gives us our timelines and the age of the universe. And as Rob Skiba, I think I might have said this last time, said, they want us to believe that they went from primordial goo to you by way
Mm,
of the zoo. And so then you get your theories of evolution, which are also riddled with holes, all these missing links and everything. So clearly things can adapt. Our skin tans when we're in the sun. Things
yeah.
do change based on environmental impact, but no dinosaur has ever turned into a chicken, or whatever the ridiculous narratives are that they want to give us about evolution. I no longer believe any of them. So
Yeah,
um,
I've even read about dinosaurs being, fake as well, and that a lot of the bones and things are created in the Smithsonian and put in museums for us to look
I
at,
wouldn't be
and then
surprised if they're using the giant bones and putting those together to make the
yeah,
dinosaurs.
be
But there's also a lot of bones that you're not allowed to have access to because I think they're either too fragile or they claim that they are radioactive and potentially threatening. So
oh,
it's
gee.
a great way to keep people,
Of
from
course,
looking at them closer. And then there's just been so much pseudoscience in dinosauria. It is a rabbit hole unto itself. But
it is.
even that narrative is supporting two very important narratives. It's supporting the idea that we could be struck by a giant rock that could wipe out civilization,
Correct.
right? So now you have your justification for all the expenditures for space travel because we got to get off. We got to get off the
Absolutely.
Earth and
Gotta get off the
colonize
rock.
space before we get
Yep.
eliminated, right? So there's all trillions have gone into space, fakery and all the and then so you have that, and then also we have the narratives that have to do with manufactured scarcity, where if we're in a created realm that is enclosed, then it's like a terrarium, and matter can change form and transmute from one thing into another, but as they say, even in mainstream science, nothing can be created or destroyed,
That's
right?
right.
It's
It's
just
just transformed.
so
Yeah.
yeah, it's transitioning from one thing into another.
Right.
So if that's the case, then we live in an unlimited realm that is bountiful, right? We put seeds into the ground, it gives us fruit, and those fruits
Yeah.
contain seeds that can grow entire trees, right? That's limitless. But we're told all these narratives of topsoil depletion. We're told that the peak oil narrative where dinosaurs were hit by something and then they magically transformed into crude oil somehow. We've never seen a body become crude oil.
Right.
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 And it's always narratives that happen over these great timelines as well, that you can't go back in time to witness it. You can't reproduce it in a laboratory necessarily. And so it's just a trust me bro thing, it's like
Yeah. I love
because
that.
all the scientists are in agreement, right? Trust the science. And it's like there's no
Look, and especially when it comes to like the moon landing stuff. When I saw I forget who it was, some astronomer or somebody that worked for NASA, and he clearly came out and said, once we can figure out how to safely get through the Van Allen belt,
radiation
then
belts. Yeah.
ex- so like,
Well, didn't we
do
already
they think
solve
we're
that problem?
exactly?
Six
I mean, they think
times
we're
when they went to the
stupid.
moon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean that they can say, well, he didn't mean that exactly. And
Right, of course.
they can find ways of
And they didn't
explaining
mean to destroy
explaining
all
that
the
a well.
evidence. Right, and they didn't
Right,
mean
and
to
the
destroy
14,000 reels of telemetry
exactly.
data that accidentally went missing.
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
was an accident.
when you
Yeah,
start to really dig into NASA, you don't find that there's a few anomalous things. You find that there are thousands of them, and the same goes for SpaceX as well. So, this is a money pit. It's narrative control. It creates a godless universe. Um, it justifies all kinds of different actions because we've got to reduce the carbon emissions because we're
right.
destroying our atmosphere, and that becomes the justification for geoengineering
Absolutely.
there's another conspiracy theory that people like to mock is the chemtrail thing. That's like, can't you see them, and don't you know
Exactly,
that there are
exactly.
literally hundreds of patents
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
on the subject of weather modification, geoengineering,
Absolutely.
stratospheric injection, all these things. So um, it's really obvious when you start to look
Yeah.
into the stuff, but you have to do the research. And unfortunately, you can't rely on Google. You can't rely on YouTube because
No,
they're going to suppress the stuff that counters the narratives.
and they do, and they
And
do. And I wanna say welcome, Brian. Thank you. It's wonderful to have you in the chat. And I've been reading, trying to read the comments, but I get so focused on what Mike is talking about. So forgive me, but a lot of really good comments coming in. Thank you so much for them. If you have any questions for Mike, just definitely post them in there. I'm sure he'd love to answer them.
You mentioned Tartaria before, and I
Yeah.
interrupted you. What was it you
Oh,
were going
no,
to
no,
ask?
it's fine. I wanted to ask you about that because I'm not the greatest at knowing exactly where it is. Was it supposed to be somewhere like around Turkey? Was it a Middle Eastern thing where
Yeah, that region
Tartaria
of the
was?
world where Kazakhstan is today,
Right.
and the
Okay.
Ukraine, and that would, many consider that to be, the center of what
The
was
center of
once
it.
the
Now,
Tartarian
did the mud
Empire.
floods? Did they happen globally? The mud floods, or was it just really in specific areas?
Yeah, when you get into cataclysm, it seems like there's been a whole variety of them, and
Yeah.
some are regional, some are continental, and some are worldwide. Um, they fall under different names, like it's been referred to as the plasma apocalypse.
Mm,
It's been called the EMCO event, which would be the electromagnetic plasma changeover event. Um, oh,
I agree with that comment. We need Mike's voice and intelligence to challenge the garbage, the love of money, and the control of the masses. Well said. True. Yeah.
I'm not sure what he meant by "not me, Mike Wilkerson." Oh, not
Oh,
not
there's
not me,
another Mike.
Mike. The other
Yeah.
Mike. Okay, yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
Tocayo. I don't know if you know that word. That's the Spanish word for namesake. In English,
Oh,
we don't say hello namesake in English, but in Spanish you can. You can say hola tocayo, which is
oh,
that's how you
nice.
greet somebody with the same name as you. So hola tocayo.
Nice.
Um,
Nice.
yeah. So the thing is, there are loads of old maps. There's lots of texts. People who say there's no evidence for Tartaria are burying their head
Yeah.
in the sand. They haven't researched at all. They're just
Right.
ignorant, or they're like in denial.
Yeah.
But it may not have been called Tartary. That may be what we're calling it now. But what we're seeing is a worldwide uh, civilization that was very advanced, building on a scale far greater than anything we're doing nowadays. They seem to have mastered a whole lot of different kinds of technologies, and probably what happened is, whatever. I mean, we have all these myths about like the fall of Atlantis and that sort of thing. We may be, looking at the same civilization ultimately, and whether they, you know, brought on cataclysm because of war and different kinds of technology, or whether God sent something to purge the realm. I don't know. But what I know is that there are so many narrative destroyers out there when it comes to mainstream historical, geological, scientific narratives that tie into these subjects. I mean, just the subject of star forts alone. I don't know if you're familiar with star forts. Have you seen that?
Starports?
Star forts.
Oh, forts. No. What
Yeah,
is that all about?
yeah. So these would be referred to as like bastion forts. We're told that they were formed between the 15th and the 17th century when the advent of cannon fire came about. So they needed thicker walls to protect the castles against the cannon fire. The old kind of construction wouldn't do. But that narrative falls apart very quickly when you start to look into this, because there are literally thousands of them worldwide. They're all exhibiting the same kinds of geometry. They look like snowflakes from above. And all of the old world cities are star forts or star citadels. And they were there first, because if you look at these walled cities, and I've lived in 7 different ones before I even knew about star forts. I lived in Siena, I lived in Padova, I lived in Kristianstad, I lived in Stockholm, here
Wow.
in Havia. Every single one of these towns is a star fort, and they can be the size of a city. And then we have like Rome. I lived in Rome as well. That's a giant star citadel. And there you go. And so when you look at these walls, they can be like 15 feet thick. Think of the amount of
Wow.
earthworks, the amount of materials that would have had to be moved. And this is supposedly, happening just as we're coming out, the Renaissance, the 1500s to the 1700s, is when these were supposedly built. But then I have a good friend who has mapped out over 10,000 of these things
Yeah,
worldwide.
there sure are a lot.
They're on every continent, and the ones you're seeing here are simple ones. They're they're much, much greater. When you look at cities like Paris, Rome, Antwerp, these are all star citadels, and we were not taught about these. I had history in college, and they never talked about these, right?
No.
This is something they don't want us looking at, because if you just start looking at it with common sense, like there's one there that's buried. There's a lot of them, or not a lot, but there's several that can be seen on Google Earth, where you just see the outline of the star fort because everything's buried. So there's your proof of major flooding as well.
So why were these made this way? Clearly, there's a reason. What was the reason to shape them all the same or similar?
There are a lot of theories. I haven't heard anything conclusive, but some suggest that they had they were involved in mining. They're always either situated over an aquifer beside a river or near the sea. So they had when they were functioning, they had permanent access to water.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
bastions,
that's just
yeah.
one little rabbit hole. And if you look up World's Fairs,
Oh, that I've seen. Mind-blowing stuff.
yeah, so the World's Fairs, the narrative on those is comical as well. When you just look at the structures, the size of them, the time frames that they tell us that they were built within. They're saying like within a year or 2 years, they're building hundreds of structures for this fair that would last for 6 months or a year, and that these structures are made out of plaster of Paris and wood, and then later they burn them down, because it was just a big fun thing to do, I guess. And when you see how many of these World's Fairs there were, and the scale of them, and some of the buildings still remain and are made out of stone. So it's just another, there's about, I could list a dozen different rabbit holes that all dovetail with each other and tie into each other, arriving at the conclusion that there was a much more majestic civilization than what we have now, widespread. There was a kind of a uniform, the architecture would change style from region to region, but the overall structures were uniform in the way that they were doing it, suggesting a worldwide coordination. So yeah, and Ben is from the Archivist. He's really been awesome about not just going back in looking at the old articles that were talking about things before history started to get reworked, but also these other narratives as well.
Yeah. Do you have a group that you belong to of people with like-minded theories and evidence? I'm sure you do. How large is that?
Well, I was in a larger group. It was a Discord, which is a gaming platform, but it's been used by a lot of different truther groups because it's so convenient for storing information and for sharing information and communicating either voice or video and sharing screens and all the things we do with things like StreamYard. You can do on that platform. Most people know it, as a gaming platform. It's being used by people, to the tune of probably hundreds of millions for gaming, but for truthing, maybe tens of thousands.
That's still pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in one group for going on 8 years now, and a lot of really interesting people were in that group that were brilliant, and several went on to start channels of their own. Ben was one of them. So that's how I got to know these people, and this is back. We talked a bit about Earth shape and flat Earth. I woke up to I don't have conclusions about what the shape is. I just am pretty certain about what it isn't. And I woke up to that whole topic about 10 years ago, and then found my way into the Discord a couple years later, and that was really rich and fruitful when it came to the exchange of ideas and information, and also just kind of a support group through the convid years. Because if you didn't have someone to talk to that was open-minded and
Yeah.
thought differently, it could be an incredibly isolating experience. I feel
Oh my goodness.
strongly for people
Imagine.
that suffered in that way. So
Yeah.
and then other groups, Telegram groups as well. So it's a rich collaboration when it comes to sharing information on these topics, and I
So what's
couldn't
your
do what
what
I did.
Yeah, no, I would that's why I kind of knew that you belonged to a group or somebody that you could share information with. We called this colossal fossils. Do you have like a jaw-dropping example of one that maybe we could share with folks? Like one that makes your jaw drop.
Yeah, it was more tongue in cheek because you used that term last time. But I went. It's hard for me to remember exactly which things I showed you last time when it comes to my the PowerPoint that I was going through. But obviously, when it comes to the most impressive colossal fossil, I would say it's the
Yeah.
work that I've done on Mont Go, because that's not just me looking at something from an angle going, it looks like an elephant.
Mm,
It's an incredibly in-depth study, where I've tabulated over 50 anatomical and histological correlations, used microscopy, Google Earth,
yeah.
all sorts of things, and analyzed, the tissues of our bones and the components of bone, and looked at the parallels to the mountain. And it's not just like, oh, it kind of matches up. It's like it's a one-to-one matchup
Yeah.
over
Is
and
that
over and
the
over
one
and over
where
again.
Google shows it closed now?
Yep.
That's the one.
Yeah.
That bit of evidence alone really nailed it for me. Like, why would they do that if they weren't trying to hide something? That is so
Yeah.
like, such a great
And
example.
they could totally explain it away as some, rendering glitch in Google
Oh, of
Earth, and, oh
course.
no, we did an update, and that
Yeah,
happens now. But the way that works, where you zoom in and it opens up, and then you zoom
exactly.
out and it closes, is just like it's like a tip of the hat to my research. It was like
Exactly.
we had to make this
Oh, that
so
nailed
that the
it.
average person who goes on Google Earth and looks at this isn't going to see what you saw.
Right.
Um, but luckily, I had the before and after
Yeah, that was
data,
great.
so I had the
I always
footage to
say they
show.
think we're stupid, but we're not.
Mm.
It's
Yeah,
such a
you
slap in the
keep your
face.
receipts. You never know when you're going to
Right.
need to use them.
Absolutely. So, as far as these mountains go, is every one of them that we see part of this colossal fossil, or is some of them just because of the plates shifting and pulling up mountains? I mean, is it all of
Yeah,
them? Like, what's
I
the
I I shy away from words like all and every, and
Yeah,
because they're always wrong. you know,
yes,
there I go. Uh,
yes,
you see what I did there, but so this is the problem. Like, there's a whole group of people that are they call themselves the meltologists, because they're looking at the different examples of uh, mountainous structures that, when you look at them and you really can discern, they're clearly formerly buildings, but on a huge scale, that got hit. If you think Sodom and Gomorrah from the Bible, right? Fire and
yeah,
brimstone coming
sure.
down, and Lot's wife turns to a pillar of salt and everything.
Yeah.
What kind of an event would do that? Well, if you go to that exact part of the world where the Bible says that occurred, what you see are these mountainous, like muddy looking structures that look like a city that got hit. And
Mm,
embedded into that mud is the highest quality brimstone found on earth. like
Wow.
sulfur, right? It's like a really, really high percentage of purity. And if you take a couple of those and you light it, it burns like a firework, right? So if you imagine these kinds of events happening and affecting structure, there's a lot of mountainous structures around the world that appear to have been buildings that got hit. The
Well, you
problem
see
with the
Pompeii, right?
meltologists,
What
yeah,
about Pompeii? Yeah.
yeah, but Pompeii didn't experience melt in that way. It was covered in ash.
And
I've been
ash,
to
yeah.
I've been to Pompeii, and everything is still stone there, right?
Oh, wow.
It's not like it's like flowing like it melted
Mm,
like lava or something, right? Um, so lost my train of thought. So the point about the meltologists is that this is an example of how a group of people started using the word all a lot, you
mm,
know, and so basically all mountains are this, or all mountains are that. So people who get into the big trees, all the mountains were formerly trees. People who get into the meltology, all the mountains were formerly, and it's like, no, as I said in my presentation I showed last time, I had a slide. It's like the answer is E, all of the above. There's some
yeah.
there's some Tartaria, there's some star forts, there's some mud floods, and you have to learn how to spot these things and recognize them for what they are. And that takes, unfortunately, a lot of work. People don't necessarily have the time or the interest to dig into things, and they'll see a 1-minute clip on Instagram and think they're an expert on the subject. So it's
What is
you know,
meltology exactly? I've never heard of that term.
that's just the term they coined for their analysis of these different sites around the realm that appear to be melted buildings. But the problem was that they were looking at a whole bunch of stuff, and I had already been looking deeply into the subject of titans and trees,
Mm,
and they were looking at a bunch of stuff that actually it made way more sense if you thought of what you were looking at as biology rather than architecture. And
mm,
so then when you start saying things like all and you're confronted with anomalies that are hard to explain, then you do all these mental gymnastics to bend over backwards to try and make it fit with your theory. And then you start looking like a crazy person to the average Joe that might tune in, because they're going to look at what you're saying and they're just going to be like, this is the most ridiculous, far-fetched idea I've ever seen. And
mm.
so I was aware of all that before I started making videos, because a 3-mile long elephant petrified to stone is a
Yeah, that
pretty
was crazy.
ridiculous idea, to most people. And I wasn't exactly, I mean, I still, in this region that I live in, I still haven't like promoted my own research in this region. My goal was not to become, famous for this research. It was just something I felt compelled to share. And as a local chiropractor, I haven't been eager to be known as the guy that thinks, the earth might be flat and mountains might have been former animals and stuff. So, it's a tough one for most people to swallow. But if they actually go into the research and see what I've done, they'll realize that it's very methodical and rooted in empirical evidence and comparisons to anatomy, and it's not just me point and claim is what a lot of people are doing. It looks like that, so it must be that, and that's not what I've done.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, how do you challenge the scientific resistance? Like, you call it paradigm blindness, I think. You kind of mentioned that, or I heard that somewhere in our last conversations. What do you do to like rewrite or help people understand that the historical timeline of the earth is not what we thought it might be? All this suppression. Like,
We're
you
doing it
put that
right
all,
now.
we're doing it right now. So that's it. You just
You
put
all
your
you can do
message
is
out
plant
there.
seeds. I went through a proselytizing phase with all this stuff, like when I started looking into NASA fakery and Earth shape and all these
Yeah.
things, and you want to like shake people and wake the world up,
Yeah.
and it doesn't work. People,
No.
all you can do is plant seeds and set an example of maybe how to think rationally and not jump off the deep end with crazy ideas, and you know really honestly adhering to the scientific method, not just paying lip service to it, or appeals to authority, which is a logical fallacy in and of itself. I mean, peer review, the highest level of science when it comes to academia, is itself an appeal to authority. So the gold standard when it comes to research that we're all supposed to, prostrate ourselves to, is literally a logical fallacy. It's appealing to the experts who came before. Well, what if they're completely wrong?
Exactly.
What if
I
you
was going
come
to
in
ask
with
you
an
if you
idea that upends everything, and they're tenured
exactly.
professors and they're heads of the Royal Society and, the
Yeah,
Cochrane Report or whatever, and, are they going to embrace your idea that's going to like prove that everything they've been supporting for
that's
the last
exactly what
decades
we said.
is inaccurate? No way. They're going to be like, oh, or we're going to sweep this one under the table.
Oh, yeah.
I
Do you
mean,
ever
look
write
at
any, like, academic papers or, have you ever thought about doing no?
I may at some point. I know some real high level scientists. There's a guy I know that has a lab, and I want to continue doing research on the going deeper into trying to find some really hardcore evidence besides what I've already found for the heart stones, something that would be undeniable in combination with all the stuff that I've already presented. So if that were to happen and the conclusions, were remarkable, then I would take the time to
Yeah.
do it. But again, what mainstream geological journal is going to want to accept such a thing? It really questions the entire origin story of petrogenesis, the origin of stone, and suggests that the realm was completely different once upon a time. And this is another thing, is that when you start looking at narratives that have to do with titans or big trees, doesn't work on a ball the size they told us, right? If everything was way, way bigger. So now you're questioning the entire cosmology. I question all the ologies at this point. I don't trust any of them. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
it's all a system of mind control and narrative control and gatekeeping. That's my take on things.
Yeah. So do you
But
think
I'm a
that
conspiracy theorist.
yeah, of course. Of course. We all are, right? Oh my goodness. So you think that there were multiple cataclysmic events that took place that kind of transformed what the real history of this planet, right? It all stems
Yeah.
from some kind of cataclysmic event, right?
And they may be cyclical as well. And
Yeah, it makes sense.
it may be that the people who are running the show have much longer lifespans than we do for a variety of different reasons. And so they're hip to the game, and they keep most of us dumbed down, and most people never figure anything out. And the ones that do, they don't really have enough time in their lifespans to do much about it.
Yeah.
When it comes to space and outer space narratives with aliens, I mean, look at how much is in the news right now with
Yeah, it's
whatever
crazy.
this comet name is and this, that, and the other. It's like all of that
AI
is,
Atlas. Yeah.
that's, now we get into the whole, Werner von Braun project
Yeah.
Bluebeam. The final card that they're going to play is the alien invasion, because that's the one thing that would unite us all, and that's how they bring in the new world order and the one currency and all of the mark of the beast and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I believe that aliens exist. I just don't believe it as we're taught. When you talk about extraterrestrials, you're talking about extraterrestrial as Earth. So we could be talking about outer realms. So
Sure.
we don't. If the Antarctic, uh, if it's not a continent, if it's a ring, and we're inside of an enclosure and there's barriers, it may be that we're in, like the ancients said, we were in concentric spheres, right?
Could
So there
be.
may be larger and larger realms outside of additional barriers for all we know. I mean, you can speculate until the cows come home about this stuff, but if you claim knowledge, I'm going to immediately be suspicious of you, because if you haven't been outside of it and seen it with your own eyes, you don't know what we're in. And if you haven't gone to these places, you can't know what's there. And even if you
Well,
go
you
to
can't
Antarctica,
go.
you're going to be in a little, what's that?
You
You're going to
can't
be in a,
go. They won't. Yeah, they won't
yeah,
let you.
you're not allowed past the, I think, 60th parallel south
Yep,
without
60th
express
parallel.
permission, and only the wealthy can afford to go to Antarctica. Then you got the Antarctic Treaty, and you've got them, the UN and all these different things using a flat Earth map as their logo. That's kind of
Right,
interesting.
which is
All
very
kinds of
interesting.
weird stuff with Operation Paperclip and
Yeah.
Operation High Jump and Dominic and Fishbowl and all these things that, I'm just throwing out rabbit hole after rabbit hole. But
Yeah.
my point is that we don't know what's in the ocean. There could be
Nope.
civilizations down there. We don't know if the earth is hollow, and if there seems to be a whole lot more going on underground than anyone has any clue about.
Agreed. Agreed.
And I think maybe a lot of the tunnels that are around the world are actually former root structures of the giant trees, because it makes sense. So we've got lava tubes. I showed pictures of those last
Yep.
time.
Yep.
So extraterrestrial for me, alien, no problem. The grays and the whatever, all these different species that, all the ufology people like to talk about and thousands of books have been written about, that could all be true. I just think that they're couching it in a false cosmology. And if they just understood that we're in, and I don't know if it's a physical barrier, the enclosure, or if it's energetic. And who knows, are there multiple, are we inside of a bubble? Are there multiple bubbles? Are they nested? Is it like the tissue of a great cosmic being? Like I said, you can speculate till the cows come home, but these are the kinds of things that most people are never even contemplating, because they don't know all the evidence that goes against the mainstream narratives. And there's literally avalanches of evidence.
Yeah, avalanches. And people are so wrapped up and busy with their day to day and worrying if they're going to get government food stamps or not, that nobody cares about aliens. You can get someone to come on TV and say, "Hey, an alien invasion is coming," and they'll be asking, "Where's my food stamp money?" and wouldn't care too much about. And I'd hate to be so trite, but that's the
No, but
way that I've.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's tragic. Some people have to work 2 and 3 jobs just to be able to feed their
exactly.
family and keep a
They're
roof over
trying to
their head,
survive.
because yeah. And it's, this is where the manufactured scarcity comes in, all these narratives about, oh, we need the climate change and all this stuff, is like, this is all part of that. And it keeps people's nose to the grindstone. So they can't
You don't
like
just cut
figure,
off.
they can't figure out what's going on.
Exactly. And you don't just cut off someone's access to food, for God's sake. Whether you disagree or agree with the premise, you just don't do it. Somebody better fix this ASAP, because it's going to become a talk about nightmares. It's already turning into a nightmare where everybody's out there stealing and robbing these local stores in their own neighborhoods. You destroying their own, neighborhood. I don't mean to change topics, but
No, I
it's
totally
sad.
relate. I remember, the
Yeah,
LA riots, the Rodney King stuff back in the 80s. And, I was always puzzled by, like, why did those people burn down their own neighborhoods? Why didn't they like
exactly,
march to Beverly Hills or one of those places and burn down those
exactly.
homes? Like, those are the wealthy ultra millionaire types that
Right,
are ultimately the part of the oppressive system. But instead they're like stealing from each other and burning their neighborhoods down. And that's
makes
the
no
thing, is
sense.
they've got people so confused, they don't even know who the real enemy is. And it's almost never who we're told it is.
Yeah, I don't know what Corey means by those people, but I'm sure he's
Those
right.
people,
Yeah, I
the
don't know.
they,
The they, exactly, the they.
yeah,
I don't know. It's crazy
yeah.
times. Crazy times
Definitely
we live
crazy
in.
times.
Yeah. But as far as Three Eye Atlas goes, like, I've been trying to keep track of the latest reports coming out about what this thing is. When a Muamua came, or a Maua, I can't, whatever it's called, it's some Hawaiian name.
Mew
That was
Mew, I think. What
a
was
Mew
that? That
Mew,
was
yeah, whatever, however you say it. Everybody was all freaked out about that. And then that turned out to be like a nothing burger. It just kind of came and went back into space travels wherever it may. But this thing seems to be concerning. It has a lot of signatures of something that's not like a celestial object. And that's the only
Right.
thing that concerns me. It does have some signatures that are anomalous. I don't know.
Yeah.
Have you
But this
been
is, I
tracking
mean,
this thing?
we're in very unusual times. Like,
Yeah.
if we're in the, if the biblical narrative is true, we seem to be, in what's known as the little season rather than,
Yeah.
um,
Sorry. She had a question.
yeah,
And I
I
think I
got,
kind of,
yeah. What was I going to
is
say?
this
Oh, I
it?
was just going to say, we were talking about underground before and the elite that they may know about these events. And I mentioned that they might be cyclical. There's some evidence to suggest that. There's a channel
Yeah.
called Archaics where he's talking about
Oh, yeah. I saw.
a
That's how I
hundred
found
and
you.
oh, you found me through him. Yeah. So he's talking about a 138-year cyclical cataclysmic event that can either be regional,
Mhm.
continental, or worldwide, depending on whichever one you get at the time. And that seems pretty compelling because he's lined up all the different chronologies from the different calendars, whether it's the Chinese or the Hebrew or our calendar, and you start to look at the historical texts based on their dating systems, and you go, oh, this comet came at this particular time,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
with it came all this destruction, and like body parts were raining from the sky, and there's
Oh
all
my
these
goodness.
really bizarre narratives that are in these texts that are actually cross-cultural as well. And so when you line those up, then that was when he recognized that there was a repeating pattern.
Mm.
And according to him, the next one is, I think, 2040. So
Oh,
it might all be leading up to some great climax. I mean, it feels that way with AI and all the
it
tech
does.
advancement and everything. It's like, how can it keep just getting faster and faster without it all coming to some kind of a head?
Exactly.
But the when it comes to I lost the point again.
Well, there's Carrie's question if you want to address that, Mike. She says,
Drum
Mike, have you
Heller, I've
ever
never heard of
examined
it.
drum hell? Never heard of it?
No, I'll write it. I'll make a note to check it out though.
The soil around that area is very sandy as well. Thank you, Carrie. Yeah, Mike, we'll check that out for sure. I think that was her last question. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I mentioned the little season. There's a channel called Understanding Conspiracy. I've had a couple conversations with Paul Stobbs. He's written a book called The Nephilim Looked Like Clowns, examining the different visions that people have, particularly with psychedelics, where they're seeing these clown-like gesture kinds of alien characters, and suggesting that a lot of our, when it comes to clowns, jesters, fools, all of these characters throughout history, that they were actually mirroring the attributes of the Nephilim, and so that's what
I
his
never
book is
heard
about.
that.
And so there's a lot of talk about false timelines when it comes to our history, and that
Yes.
like large portions of, if you look at Anatoly Fomenko, I think he suggests that roughly 700 years were injected into the historical timelines in order to create the illusion that these different civilizations, like the Greek and the Roman and the Egyptian, that they all came successively one after the other, when in reality they were all existed simultaneously. And so there's been this historical modification in order to create this illusion, to present this false narrative of, we are the most advanced that's ever lived now, and we were so primitive then, and we've incrementally come forward to where we are now. But the other thing about it that's interesting is that in the Bible, you have the millennial reign of Christ, which is after Christ returns, there's this 1,000-year period of peace in which Christ rules in the realm. And a lot of Christians are, avidly looking forward to that because they are saved, have accepted Christ as their personal savior, and they feel like, they've got their bases covered, and they're looking forward to that time period. But there's a lot of very interesting researchers that are suggesting that the 1,000-year reign of Christ already happened. And when we're looking at Tartary or Atlantis or whatever, that we're actually looking at the remnants, the remains of that. And our Capitol buildings and our post offices and our, these megalithic structures that are around the realm are indicative of a society that was way more sophisticated, focused on not just function, but aesthetic beauty in a way that we definitely are not today. Like, the idea that we are the most advanced that's been here is really ridiculous if you just look at the old structures and see what they were producing and the old sculptures. And so the basic idea being is that we're actually in this section of the Bible that is known as the little season, in which Satan is loosed from the pits of hell and reigns free, and everything is inverted, twisted, warped, perverted, just like we see
Sure
today.
seems.
And
Exactly.
and then you get the genetic manipulation, you get the jabs and whatever those are doing, and all these things seem to suggest that we're in that time period. So if the Bible is real, then we're getting near the climax. But a lot of people are freaked out by the concept of the apocalypse, but they don't understand that the word apocalypse means the unveiling, right? It's where when the truth will out, and no matter who you are and what you believe, it will at some point very likely become completely undeniable. But along the way, there's a lot of deception, and they're going to try and get us to do whatever it is they want us to do, and herd us into smart cities and force us into facial recognition and digital IDs and all that stuff.
Right. And you can't help but think of that. I mean, if you look at what's happened to Jamaica recently with the hurricane, that was slated to be a smart city, I think, in 2030. And there's such a trail of that happening right now.
And Louisiana was sitting on top of the largest lithium reserves in North America, as well as some of the highest quality quartz found on Earth. And
they're reclaiming.
The people who were wiped out were actively working to prevent, the mining industry from coming in there, because, if they're going to mine for lithium, it's going to be incredibly destructive to the local environment.
Yeah.
Maui as well, smart city.
Yeah, Maui as well. California fires. I mean, they're all slated for smart cities. And, we hear so much talk about it. At least I see it all over social media. And yet they just continue to get away with it. And they'll keep doing it, Mike. They're going to keep.
Valencia, Spain, the flooding last year. That's also another smart city.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I even think the earthquakes in Italy too were intentionally. You hate to be so cynical, but like you said, everything is flipped on its head, and you can't help but think it's some kind of dark force. And especially for those that pay attention to music and movies and what's being pumped and pushed down our throats, all of this satanic type of behavior, what's going on with CERN, opening up portals to the demonic. I mean, we're hearing all this insanity. It's like.
Yeah. Project Looking Glass is another interesting one related to CERN. That do they have technology where they can look forward or backward in time? That ties into Donald Trump in the most interesting ways, because you got him, his rise to power being, what do you say, prefaced, or not prefaced, but what's the word? Prophesized by the Back to the Future movies in the form of Biff. And, Biff gets his hands on the sports results that fell out of Marty's back pocket. And all of a sudden he can't lose in the casinos, and he becomes the wealthiest man on earth. But he's also this amoral man who's a tyrant because he hates himself. And Interesting how that works. And
What about
a
the
lot of
tale
people
of
don't know this.
yeah, no, there's a
I
book
would,
too called The Tale of
yeah,
Baron von Trump. Yeah,
von Trump, yeah,
yeah,
and so there's a whole bunch of seeming prophecy. Like you got Baron von Trump's adventures, and
yeah,
he's being guided by someone called the Dawn, right?
yeah.
And then the second book by Ingersoll Lockwood was called The Last American President. I haven't read either book. I just know
I
little
heard
bits and
about that.
pieces from them.
Yeah, yep,
Um, and so I'll get back to Project Looking Glass in a second,
yeah,
but then what was it? You've got a book by Werner von Braun, founder of
yeah.
NASA, former SS Nazi scientist who was brought over with Operation Paperclip to
Right.
found NASA. People, if you don't know about Operation Paperclip, you don't have much of a clue about what is going on in the U.S. right now, because those are the people that really shaped and formed the society there. And
Correct.
so Werner von Braun's tombstone says Psalms 19:1 on it, which is that the heavens declare the glory of God and the firmament shows his handiwork. So isn't that interesting that the founder of NASA is referencing the firmament on his own tombstone? Like, why would
Right
he do
there.
that?
Yeah, I know. I
But
thought that was
in addition to that, he
so
wrote a book.
trippy.
He
Yeah,
wrote a book in the 50s called A Mission to Mars.
yeah.
And in that book, there's one man who basically rallies the troops and leads all of humanity to colonize Mars. And that man's name is the Elon. So,
Oh,
this is like,
that's
you know,
crazy.
I mean, people always like talk about the Simpsons predicting things and all the different predictive programming when it comes to things like 9/11.
Exactly.
But so anyway, back to Project Looking Glass. It's interesting. A lot of people don't know this, but and some people hypothesize that Tesla might not even have been a real man. There's a lot of false characters that have been created in history to present different
The narrative.
narratives. In fact, some suggest that Napoleon didn't even exist,
Oh,
which
wow.
historians would find laughable, I'm sure. But it's ironic that because we get the quote, "History is a set of lies agreed upon," from Napoleon. So,
Hysterical.
well, whether Tesla existed or not, I don't know, but let's just say that he did.
Yeah.
The official narrative is that, well, before I say that, if there was anyone in that time period who would have been likely to have hit upon time travel, or at least the ability to look forward or backward in time, it would probably have been Nikola Tesla. And I think that he had different writings that were touching on the theme. So a lot of people don't know this, but the man who collected Nikola Tesla's writings and experiments after he
Mhm.
died was John Trump.
I did hear that. It was
That's
some relative
Donald Trump's uncle, who he
uncle.
claims
Yeah,
was one of his most important
yeah,
mentors. So this is bizarre when you take that,
yeah,
when you think about the Back to the Future movies and all these other data points that I just mentioned, is that literally the one guy who would have been most likely to receive the benefits of such technology if it existed,
yeah.
uh, who would be alive today, is the most powerful man, or at least,
Mhm. I mean, it kinda makes sense.
publicly.
Yeah, and if you look at Elon Musk's business models, like, just look at all his business models. There's definitely a correlation there. He
Hmm.
owns the Boring Company. Like, why is he so into drilling
Underground tunneling. Hmm.
underground dumbs? And then you
Hmm.
got the brain chip thing and the robots, and just
Transhumanism.
look at it. Just look at his business models.
Look at
It's
his
all right
mom.
there.
Look at his ex, is
Yeah.
the mother of his children.
Yeah.
I mean, this
It's
is deep,
crazy.
dark, occultic stuff.
It
As
really
is
is.
NASA. Like every one of their missions has got, like, Greek gods and occultic symbolism woven
Yes.
throughout it. It's I think at the highest levels we're dealing with black magicians, and magic is
Absolutely.
real. And if you were a black magician who wanted all the power, you would convince everybody that magic isn't real. You would turn them all into muggles, right? Harry Potter and that
That's right.
concept of muggles, the ones who can't do magic, right? Well, if you
Yeah,
don't believe you can do magic, you're certainly not going to be doing magic. So
absolutely.
obviously, if you're a Bible believer and you're going to think, oh, magic is evil and it's the work of Satan and you shouldn't be doing it. Oh, well, maybe there's white magic also. Maybe angels are white magicians and you've
There you
got
go.
demons, and so maybe the Bible is being used to convince people that they shouldn't go anywhere near that stuff, when in reality they should, but with the right intentions. I'm not promoting
Yeah,
that. I'm just presenting it as a
it
possibility.
absolutely, it's worth pondering. And if you again, if you look at everything that's being left out of the Bible, that has to make you question the entire thing.
Hmm.
Because how it's like reading a book and you take out chapters every even chapter. How are you supposed to appreciate the book? And that really turned. And I used to be a big Bible reader, and now I'm just so disillusioned with it. I
Yeah,
I
go to
just
I think it's the Ethiopian Bible that has all of the apocryphal texts still in it.
oh, is that right?
Um, yeah, yeah,
I
that
gotta check
it's, I
it
mean,
out.
just the Bible alone is, you could spend your whole life just studying the Bible and,
Yeah.
looking at all the different translations and Strong's Concordance and all this stuff. And I watched a debate between two very high level people that knew a lot about the Bible and scripture,
Mm,
and
yeah.
it was remarkable. But I came away from that realizing that they both could have been wrong, they both could have been right, or one or the other. And ultimately, you could spend your whole life studying just that one book and still not know the truth.
Exactly.
The truth is a really hard thing to pin down. So I'm a big fan of the neti neti principle, which is not this, not that, so that
Yeah.
you arrive closer at the truth by eliminating falsehoods. So that's where I think the Bible is so attacked by the powers that be, because one of the big themes in the Bible is it's teaching the reader, the devotees, how to be able to recognize the wily ways of the great lying one.
Oh my
and
goodness.
and so they don't want people doing that, so they make it into something laughable. The Christians are often
Of
mocked,
course.
and then we have the
They're
science, and
great at
they're
that.
primitive, and they think
Right.
this realm was created 5,000 years ago, but we're sending rovers to space. Oh, are we? Or is that CGI? And is there really any true conclusive evidence that we've been to space? And I would say none. And I've
Absolutely
been
agree
looking
with
at this
you.
for a decade.
Absolutely agree with you. You know what's interesting too? I noticed like my whole life I've been on this spiritual journey, always seeking and digging and reading and about a year ago I gave up on doing that and I said, "You know what? Whatever comes to me is meant for me." And ever since I did that, I'm learning so much more things that are just meant for me to learn. And it's
Hmm.
interesting when you just let go and things come to you. They just do. It's almost like the universe knows. I mean, I know that sounds a lot of woo woo, but
Not at
I
all. I don't
you know,
I don't come at it from like a denominational angle at all.
yeah,
I'm a believer in God, and I
absolutely,
I have faith, and I think that in the end, love wins, because love is where creation came from in the first place. Um,
absolutely.
but it's all, there's a lot going on here,
It really
that's
is, Mike.
hard to make sense of. But there was a point I was going to make there, and I lost it. Um,
It'll come back to you. It always does.
Oh, it was synchronicity. I was going to say
Yeah.
that, um, to me, those are like the little taps on the shoulder
Yes.
hey, pay attention to this, look this way,
Right.
or something that comes in confirmation. at a moment that you have a thought or an insight or an intuition, boom, all of a sudden there's some concrete confirmation of what you said. I mean, everyone's familiar with the
Absolutely.
phone rings when you think about your friend, and we live in a supernatural realm, and
Oh,
we
God.
can tune into it. I've seen children who can do all kinds of things completely blindfolded. They can solve Rubik's cubes, they can play chess. I've witnessed this with my own eyes. They're not faking it. They're wearing
Yeah,
masks to blind them,
I've seen
and
those
there's a
videos.
whole generation of children that are coming up with supernatural abilities.
Yeah.
The telepathy tapes, which was the
Yes.
number one podcast for a while, looking at the nonverbal autists, who they're not just they used to try and prove psychic ability, like if you were right 55% of the time, then that was statistically significant, right? If you think of flipping a coin, 50-50 chance
Sure.
each time you flip
Yeah,
it, right? Well,
absolutely.
the odds are not 50-50 that you're gonna guess 50 times in a row. The odds get
Right.
astronomical very quick that but these nonverbal autists, they're right every time. So
It's crazy.
they've
They're
been
referred to as
damaged in
star
some way.
children.
What's
I
that?
think
The
I think
star
we're
children.
calling them star seeds, star children. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, hold on to your seats. It's going to be a wild ride. I think it's just the tip of the iceberg, this stuff that's happening right now. But I'm excited. I think you said you were an apocalyptimist last time we
Yes.
talked.
Yes.
I say the same. My
Yeah.
sense is that it's probably going to get a lot worse before it gets better, because
Yeah.
it's going to take that before people are start to wake up en masse. Um, Social media has done wonders for that, but it's also fooling people so much, especially with AI now and all the psyop of the week. It's just it's coming at people so fast, and there's not enough time. And if you haven't already like honed your discernment abilities uh, over the last decades, try waking up now and make sense of things. It's really tough,
Scary.
even if you've
Yeah.
been at it for a long time.
Yeah. And that's why AI is very, I mean, I use AI for my business all the time, for my other business too, but I have a lot of discernment when I use it. I don't rely on it. I kind of just use it as a tool and aid. But when people are looking at videos, especially videos on the internet, talk about discernment. Like, they need to question everything they see, because this reality here is not real, and it's not, and people think it is. And that's what's scary. They better
Yeah,
get it
the the,
together.
the black mirrors are scrying
Yes,
devices, right? That's what I
exactly.
think I said that last time as well, is that if it's on a screen, you can't be certain anymore. And
Exactly.
I'm constantly, when I'm looking at, scrolling on Instagram or others, I'm on a lot of social media because I gather a lot of information that way. I
Sure.
share a lot, but I also waste a lot of time.
Me
but
too.
but I'm constantly questioning, like, is this thing I'm seeing even real? And just 3 or 4 years ago, I wouldn't have done that, you know. But now it's like I'm constantly asking
You
that.
have
And
to.
and this is the thing, though, and is this is like the Matrix. It's the overlay on top of our reality. Like, the reality, if you look out the window, that's real. You can go touch it. You can plant seeds, they'll grow. You can cut down trees. You can do, there are all these things that you can do that are physical. And yeah, you can get into philosophical mind games of like, oh, but what if you're a brain in a vat? And is that really happening? Or maybe we're just like jacked into the Matrix and we think it's real, but it's not. Yeah, all that could be true as well. But I operate, at least for the time being, under the assumption that that's real, and it's amazing, and it's majestic, and it's beautiful, and it's got the hands of the creator all over
Yeah.
it. But this is made by man, and or not just man, but probably
Yeah.
demonic forces, and
Probably.
so buyer beware. When you're when you're using these devices, it's
I mean, what about that story that's all over the news now? This poor young teenager was chatbotting with ChatGPT, and he was talked into, I don't want to use the word because YouTube doesn't like it. Let's say he was talked into walking off the planet
Right.
by
Removing himself
ChatGPT.
from the equation. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've seen some of those videos where, and it's hard to
Tragic.
know what's true because you can also have there's zillions of AIs now, and people have their own that are, local, and they can feed the AI all kinds of data, and then they can get it to do things which are in some cases amazing. But if you were doing the same thing with nefarious intentions, you could create an AI that would be very, very clever at,
Oh yeah.
picking in, the holes of someone's psyche in a way that would make them increasingly unstable. The question is, are the main AIs that people are using, are they doing these kinds of things? And people,
Yeah.
I don't use Siri or any of these,
Yeah.
obviously my phone is listening in on me all the time, but
Oh yeah.
you know, I'm not I'm not using those AIs that are just like all pervasive, and it's like, oh, play the music and do this, and I do everything myself, because I don't want that intrusion and influence.
Yeah.
But most families, they're happy to have that Amazon, whatever it is, they can just order something, while they're cooking. Oh, order me this,
Yeah,
and
I would
it's
never
sent in the
do
mail the
that.
next day.
Yeah. Awful.
But then a lot of people are using these systems for, companionship and for trying
Yes.
to make sense of reality, and that's where, the programming could be extremely nefarious. I
Oh
don't
my goodness.
trust X's Grok. I don't trust Google's AI. I don't trust
Yeah.
any of them.
Oh no,
Um,
no. I'll tell you what was really disturbing. The invention of the grief bot, where people are duplicating, they're using bots to kind of clone their deceased loved ones
oh
to
yeah,
have conversations with them and act as if they're here on the planet and talk to them.
yeah.
The
There's a
thought
couple
of
of Black
that
Mirror episodes about
Black
that
Mirror
sort of thing.
episode, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I would
Yeah, there
never
was
do
one with
that.
Salma Hayek, which was
I saw that.
that was a really bizarre episode, but it's like it was very realistic, where all the terms and conditions that we click yes to in order to
Yeah,
use
yeah,
these
yeah.
various apps, that, what if one of those terms and conditions is you giving away all of the rights to your entire digital footprint that they can use to recreate you as a digital
Exactly.
avatar, or not, I mean, they could fake us to
Yeah, yeah.
very, to perfection, probably. Um,
What about that movie Vanilla Sky that came out a lot? Did you ever see that with Tom Cruise
I
where,
did, but it's been so long, I don't remember the
yeah,
details.
he signed a contract to put him into like like a matrix. They froze him. They used some kind of technology to freeze him and keep his brain active, and they put him in some kind
Mm.
of weird state where it was and this had to be 15, 20 years ago.
Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger
Yeah,
and
that was
Mars
great too. They're
colonization.
telling
Yeah.
us this is predictive programming. They
Well,
let us know all about it.
yeah, and that was something I was going to mention before earlier. I got this concept from a man named Joe Atwill. He wrote a book called Caesar's Messiah, I believe,
Mm,
um, questioning the Christian biblical narratives. But I think he coined the term lifetime actor. When we
mm.
look at a book written in the 50s predicting that someone called the Elon is going to lead the
Oh
colonization of
my
Mars, and
goodness.
then the current man on Earth that's most likely to do that is called Elon,
Come on,
that,
what are the odds?
yeah. So I think that these are people who are born and bred to play a role. I think people like Gates, Bezos, Musk,
Yes.
Trump, I think all of these people are lifetime actors, and
Yeah.
that their families are deeply rooted in the secret
Oh yeah.
societies, and they're probably making use of technology we can't even imagine. Somebody like Trump with Looking Glass might have the ability to look forward or backward in time, which would explain, how nothing ever seems to stick to him, and he's always kind of one step ahead of everyone else.
Yeah.
If they've got that kind of a jump on people. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's all
It's
interesting to
crazy out there.
ponder the crazy
It's
world,
crazy. So
wonky world.
before we say goodbye to you, I have to ask you about your previous hacker life. So you have a
Mhm.
book out, right?
Yep.
On Amazon. Talk about that a little bit. Take a few minutes.
Yeah, so it's called The Hacker Prince, A True Story, because it is. It was the events that I recount in that book, which is basically lightly touching on my early childhood, but basically most of the events take place between 13 and 19 years of age, when I was a computer hacker, and got really deep into it and knew a bunch of hackers around the nation that I eventually met with many of them in person, and had crazy adventures with them, and then eventually got caught. I was living in Seattle at the time, and it was
What did you
1980.
hack into that finally was it a cumulative a thing like evidence that they got, or was it a specific place?
The four companies that I was charged with infiltrating, there were a lot more, but they were saving themselves paperwork by picking the four biggest,
Yeah.
were Microsoft, Boeing,
Oh.
Kenworth Trucking, and Sunstrand. So Sunstrand was manufacturing the black box flight recorders. I didn't
Oh.
find out until later, but I was actually in their payroll computer, so I could have
Oh
cut
my.
checks. I wasn't interested in what was in the computers. I was interested in the systems themselves and the operating systems, and I wanted to get my hands on technology that I could never afford to use, and so that was how I did it, and it was just kind of the thrill of conquest. One of the newspapers described it as a high-tech joyride, which is really what it was for me.
Yeah.
It was also
Yeah.
a social life. Um,
Oh yeah,
I was
networking
into
with all the
sport. I wasn't a complete misfit, but I was definitely a computer nerd, and I loved video games and all things, space and Star Trek and Star Wars and that sort of thing. And so this was all just like the natural
yeah,
evolution of that,
progression. Yeah.
and stepping into the future. And I felt like I was on the cutting edge of that. So telecommunications and modems and all that stuff. As soon as I found out about them, I was obsessed. And
What language did you program in? That was back in the
I,
day.
I programmed a bit in BASIC, but I was never a programmer. I talk about that extensively in the book. It was
How
like
could that be possible?
programming was my nemesis. Well, some of the best hackers in the world have been people who didn't know how to program,
But
because
don't you know coding to hack something? Like,
I knew operating systems, and I knew a lot of different software packages, and I could tweak the code a bit, but I wasn't a programmer. There, the most famous hacker of all time, his name is Kevin Mitnick. He passed
mhm.
away a few years ago. In his autobiography, he said that people are the weakest link in any security system, and it doesn't
Mm,
matter how advanced your computers are, you've always got to deal with the human component. So if you're
yeah.
clever with your tongue and you understand human nature and
Yeah.
social engineering is the term for it, then you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
hack the people and they'll give you the passwords. You don't need to crack the
That's
system to
true.
get in.
That's
And
true.
so that was, I don't even think he was a programmer of high level. He knew a
Yeah.
lot about a lot, but yeah. So yeah, I got busted for infiltrating Microsoft, ironically, because I'm not a fan of Bill Gates at all.
Oh,
And
you and me
if I
both.
had known who he would become, I wouldn't have been
Yeah.
in there, just bouncing around.
Exactly.
I probably would have
That's
made much more of a
incredible.
mark. So
Yeah.
it's good that I wasn't, because I hadn't done anything malicious. I wasn't stealing data. I wasn't interested in selling secrets or anything like that. For me, it was just the thrill of conquest and getting in
Yeah.
and staying in, you know,
Yeah.
and I
Well,
would
they had to
tighten up.
make an
I would,
example though, right? They made an example of you. Is that why you went to
yeah,
jail?
yeah. It
Yeah.
was a new law, and I was the second person to be prosecuted under the law.
Wow.
And the first guy, I think, got off with probation, and I got a jail sentence. I was a first-time offender, but I, I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. So the guy who was the prosecuting attorney on my case had a vested interest in a prosecution, obviously, but he also co-authored he co-authored the law that I was prosecuted under. So
Oh,
he definitely had
wow.
a vested interest in a conviction. I said
Yeah.
prosecution, but I meant conviction.
Well,
So
folks
yeah,
can
I
buy
ended
your
up getting
book.
a. Yep,
Folks,
I'll
yeah.
show it. Hold on.
Yeah. We've got like a minute. Yeah, his story is so amazing. I keep meaning to order the book myself. I have to go do that.
Sorry, I didn't hear you. I didn't have the
Oh, I was
headphones on.
saying I keep meaning to order your book and I have it in my basket in Amazon and there we go, The Hacker Prince. All
Yeah,
righty.
and
And the link will be in the description of this video on YouTube. So
is the
folks,
text backwards?
no, it's not
Oh,
actually.
it's forward
For
this
me,
time.
it was, yeah. For me,
Okay,
it was good. It was good.
good.
But thank you so much. And I'm gonna say again, please be sure, folks, and go to YouTube and follow STELLIUM7. Stellinium. Is that right? Stellinium.
Stellium.
Stellium. Sorry.
Stellium.
What does that mean? Well, we have like a minute left.
It's an astrological term, and it
Ah, there you
has
go. I
to
figured.
do with 3 or more planets in a sign or in a house.
Ah,
And I
gotcha.
grew up with
Stellium
astrology,
and
so
stellar. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, we're
it'd
out
be
of
great
time.
if you do sub to the channel. Please make some comments, so I know you're there, because it's
Yeah,
been
please
heavily
make sure you do
algorithmed,
that.
and in fact, the last interview that we did, you told me the numbers, and that was a lot of people.
Yep.
I couldn't even tell. It wasn't even a blip on my
Yeah,
channel.
I
So
know. I
it's
know. I
it's
know.
it's
Folks,
all right.
please be sure and subscribe. Show him some love. Show me some love. Just go to YouTube and hit the button. It takes 1 second. Our time is up. Mike, you know I'm going to ask you back again. I'm like addicted to you, listening to you. So I will be in touch,
I'm glad
dear. Thank you.
I have things to share. So, and
Oh, you
I'm
do. You
always
do.
happy with a
You got a lot of
engaged
fans. A lot of fans.
audience.
Thank you so much,
Wonderful.
dear. We'll see you
All
again
right.
soon.
Take
Thank you. And thank you so much, everyone in the chat. You guys are fabulous. I love hearing your comments. Carrie, all of you, Heidi, Z-Sun, thank you, Mike. You had so many wonderful comments. We're past the 5 o'clock portion, so I'm going to say a quick goodbye. God bless. Thank you. Tune in Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Check our social media. I'll have all the banners. Thank you. Thank you. We love you all dearly. Take care. Goodbye.